Hello, my name is Daniel, and this is the Engineering Success Podcast, the premier engineering career podcast. Thank you so much for joining in. As today we're doing a mailbag episode, so we're going to be talking about some topics on our recurring bit, LinkedIn Lunatics, career questions, college questions, all related to the wonderful field of engineering. Before we get into that, though, I want to give a huge shout out to my friends John Ott and Leroy Jenkins. Thank you both so much for being top tier supporters of the podcast. For $10 a month, you too can be a top tier supporter and help me pay for my website, www.engringsuccess.com, where I have my domain for my email address, Daniel at the engringsuccess.com, where you can contact me if you have any questions, if you want to be a guest on the podcast, if you want to be involved in the show, if you have a question you want me to answer on the show. Life's good. We went to a fall festival last weekend, which was exciting. I'd been looking forward to it all year long. Some crazy storms have been going on in western North Carolina, just a little while west of us. We're safe here in Charlotte, but thank you for all those that have reached out to me and checked in on us. We're doing okay here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Just a little bit of rain and wind. Okay, a lot of it of rain and wind. But yeah, life is good. Baby E is going into school now. They're going into half-day school, which is just crazy. They're running around, climbing onto the couch. It's pretty big developments here in the Dollinger household. So thank you for those that have been following along with our life over the last year and a half since baby E has been thought of and then born. It's been kind of fun to track their life through the lens of this podcast. All right. Well, let's get into it right away. Let's get into this week in LinkedIn Lunatics. And this week in LinkedIn Lunatics, we're going to do something a little bit different. This is a salary post. How absurd is this? Engineer in training at XYZ company from $35,000 a year, which is absolutely insane. Let's do a quick math. Hey Siri, what's 35,000 divided by 52 divided by 40? Just under $17 an hour, $16.82. No, you cannot get engineers in training, EITs. So this is either a company that is absolutely idiotic and absurd, or a company that doesn't understand that an engineer in training is not like an intern. And even that is kind of a little bit low for engineering intern pay. This is insane. Yeah, the top comment was by A-hole engineer says, looks like a great salary of the year was $19.85. Yeah. And you see stuff like this that says must be able to get a PE within 6 months, a bit under $17 an hour. My local target starts at $24 an hour. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the starting salary at McDonald's is approaching that, if not already over that. I think the Buc-ee's you can make more than $17 an hour without an engineering degree. So yeah, that's pretty absurd. No, so on a scale of 1 to 10, that is lunacy. I'd say that the average engineering starting salary is probably going to be at least, I mean, obviously it'll depend on your cost of living area. I think that the lowest cost of living areas in the US is probably in the 50s, but even that is kind of crazy low. And if you ask me, let's see, average engineering starting salary. We're seeing AI overview is 69,000, so just a little under double what this company was offering. And I think I saw a comment that said, "Where's the other half of the salary?" Which is about right. I was just under $70,000 whenever I started out of school. So yeah, 35 is definitely quite low. So that is a 10 out of 10 on the lunatic scale. Yeah. Companies, you can't pay engineering graduates that little. You really cannot. All right. Next question. We're going to go into our college questions, and this one is titled, "Why do so many engineering students seem to hate their major?" I'm starting my degree in electrical engineering this fall, and I'm having second thoughts after reading so many "I hate my life" in engineering posts. Why is this so common? Why do so many people seem to hate their major or job? Why even study it if it will make you miserable? Well, I'd say that the engineering major is just really challenging. I think that it's the most challenging undergraduate degree you can pursue. So especially if you have a lot of friends that are not engineering majors, it might be really frustrating to see your friends maybe having a little bit more of a social life or less difficult of a college experience academically and maybe doing more fun things, going out during the week, going to all the football games. And I did all those things, but I definitely had to sacrifice a little bit more sleep to make those things happen while I was in college. And I was just generally, I was trading stress for sleep, for progress on engineering, for fun. It was like a triangle of like progress on engineering homework, and then yeah, progress on engineering homework, sleep, fun. And it was like a triangle, and like it was constantly a game of pushing myself between the three. And so not everybody wants to do that, right? And or not everybody has to do that in college. I mean, some people get some pretty easy majors in college, and then they have a little bit more time, and that can be frustrating. I think the other thing is that just because your degree was hard doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to make more money. I'd say that the floor for engineering salaries is definitely higher than people without engineering degrees. I think that the employability for people with engineering degrees, the floor for that is higher than people with other degrees. It's one of the most usable, versatile, valuable degrees. But just because you get the tough degree doesn't necessarily mean you'll always make more money. Um, so whenever you start your career, a lot of people also get really frustrated because like, well, I studied this engineering degree, I work so hard, I work as an engineer, but then the reality is that many engineers are commodities in the sense that you're an overhead expense or you're a billable expense and an expense that needs to be kept down, right? So you're not necessarily bringing in. Some engineers do bring in work, but not all engineers bring in work or manipulate the business structure the way that maybe somebody with a finance degree or in sales would, right? So there's always going to be people that make more than the engineers do, but some engineers may look at that and be like, oh, well, I studied the hardest major and I worked this hard and challenging job and I don't make more than these other people doing this thing. So it's easy to compare and and feel frustrated. Also, I think that there's also a confirmation bias about that. Is that if you're on an engineering Reddit page, I think that people on the extremes are more likely to post online about their experience. And honestly, if I was having a really good time and I'm making a lot of money, I wouldn't be on Reddit really flaunting it. I'd just be going and enjoying my money. So I think it's the people that are really frustrated with where they're at in their life. They're going to be the ones that are more likely to post on Reddit. So it's kind of a mix of those things. I think that engineering is a great major, and then you're considering your degree in electrical engineering. So I'd say that if you want to pursue it, go ahead and pursue it. Just realize that just because you get an engineering degree doesn't mean you'll make a crazy amount of money. You'll make good money, and then if you want to work in a role where you're making profit and loss type decisions, or you're involved in selling the work, bringing in work. It takes more than just being an engineer that delivers engineering work to make a lot of money in engineering. You can make great money doing that, but again, just like in any other industry, it's the rainmakers that make the money. It's the people that make the decisions, that take the risks on behalf of the company, that have incentive type pay, that make incentive type money. So that's just the way it is in every industry, and engineering is really no exception to that. Um, I and why even study it? It's interesting as somebody that really doesn't do too much design engineering now. I study it, and why study if it'll make you miserable? It's a fun challenge. I knew that I could get. I think I knew that I could get through an engineering degree program, so I went for it. And I enjoyed it. I think I would have been bored out of my mind in any other major in college. Maybe I would have enjoyed finance. I think finance would have been my backup. Maybe become a quant or something like that. But yeah, that's kind of my take. It's the fact that it's difficult. It's more challenging. It takes more time than other majors. More time and difficult degree doesn't necessarily always directly translate to making more money. Either you can make good money with an engineering degree, and confirmation bias. That's my take on why many engineers seem to hate their major. And I think the top comment on Reddit kind of covers this. Uh, the grass is always greener. Hate their major? No, we love our majors. We're very proud of them. We just hate all the work it takes to get them, but that's what makes it so worth it. So yeah, so that I'd say yes, pursue the engineering degree. Don't be scared by what you read on Reddit. You use Reddit as a tool to help you prepare for your engineering degree. You have reasonable expectations and also know what to expect. Well, that's the same thing. Okay, next one. In that same vein, ego. What the hell is up with engineering students, man? Sometimes it seems like 70% of my classmates have a god complex over their engineering ability while simultaneously performing at the average level, if not below average on exams, homework, and projects. I've met some wonderful people in my time studying engineering, but I've also met so many people who are all the way up their own butt and needlessly competitive about it. Is this normal or is my school just odd? If it is normal, what the heck is it all about? Yeah, interesting. I think that at my school, there really wasn't that present. It was a very small engineering cohort. We started with maybe just under 100 engineering students, and we graduated about 35, 40 engineering students. So we were pretty tight knit. We weren't really that competitive with one another. It's really kind of a collaborative study environment. I'd say that really early on in the engineering degree program, there were some people that kind of had this god complex over their engineering ability, and it's interesting that some of those people ended up being the people that actually dropped out of engineering. Was my perception as, and maybe they were just compensating. Maybe they did engineering classes in high school, or they're good with tools or whatever. They like building things, and they ended up not finishing their engineering degrees. So um, I guess I didn't have this experience. So I guess it's, but I can imagine it would be normal, and I think it's because a lot of engineering students, they were just the best student at their school. Many of them, now not all of them were the best students at their high school, but a lot of them were, they're good at math and science. That's one of the reasons why they pursued an engineering degree for most engineering students. So therefore, they're good in STEM, and that translates usually to academic success in high school, and they're probably good grades. And again, everything in the world is saying STEM, STEM, STEM. So them being good at the STEM, you know, disciplines in high school and early into college, it can give you a little superiority complex over maybe your classmates that are not as good at STEM topics or kind of behind in those things. So I think it's maybe not. I saw the complex over other majors. I definitely was a little bit guilty of that at times, but I've since grown out of that. But yeah, I think it's just they're just used to being good at the things that society has been telling us lately is the things that you want to be good at. So there's a little bit of ego that comes from that. Um, but yeah, I didn't really notice it at my school. Most people were just trying to survive. I will say, and then this is interesting. I saw this in the comment section, and this is interesting. Physics majors, on the other hand, yes, I actually noticed that about physics majors at my school. Not all of them, but I did notice that it's interesting. Physics majors at my school had an interesting complex, like that their degree was more difficult than engineering, and and that they're and some of the smartest people I met in college were physics majors. So maybe that's true. But again, same thing that we talked about earlier is just because your major was hard, which I don't think the physics major is harder than the engineering major for many reasons, and I can go into that more in depth if people really want me to go into my reasoning behind that. But just because your major is quote unquote hard or you think your major is hard doesn't necessarily lead to employability, which is why, I mean, I know many people that have physics degrees that then have to go get masters in engineering because companies won't hire them to be an engineer, and that's really where the field that they want to work in anyways. So yeah. Also, one of the smartest people I ever met that I've met was on Jeopardy. One of my good friends now. He was a physics major, and he does not have an ego about it. And he, same thing. He went and got a master's in engineering, and now works as an engineer. Took him a little longer to get his engineering degree and get to work in the field. So I'd say, hey, just if you can, just get the engineering degree anyways. But yeah, all this to say, no, I didn't really experience this in my school. Maybe you go to like a school where your culture is kind of bad. But most of my classmates were very willing to help one another as long as you weren't just like asking somebody to do things for you or lazy and trying to like not do your work and then expect somebody else to help you out at the last minute. But yeah, no, I didn't really have that ego issue at my school. I'm really good friends with the people, not okay, not really good friends, but I'm friends and friendly with the people that graduated at the top of my class, and they were very friendly. And some people in my school were maybe a little bit more defensive of of their time and their efforts, so they maybe be less willing to tutor you because, especially if you hadn't put in the time yourself and you're just coming to them saying, "Hey, can you teach me how to do this?" And they probably would say no, and that's fair. But they're not really an ego complex at my school, so I think it is just your school. All right. Speaking of people with complexes and beliefs about engineering schools, let's go into our next question. This one's interesting. From r/engineering students. Today, my pre-med friends argued that you can get through engineering through memory alone. This conversation really pissed me off. My pre-med friends, biochem and biostats, told me they believe you can make it through any undergraduate major through memory alone. Okay, you can make it through their undergraduate majors through memory alone. You cannot make it through an engineering major through memory alone. While this may be the case for some majors, I assured them this would not work for engineering. Thank you. The point of our major is to learn new ways to solve problems that have never been addressed before. Engineering is defined by our ability to create something new and solve problems in innovative ways. Our coursework is immensely difficult and takes more than memory to pass, let alone excel. They argued that in their experience as pre-med students, memory was the most important factor. I told them that the structure of their courses is completely different, but they just brushed me off. There isn't really a point to this post, but I want to rant about how angry this made me. Thank you for listening if you made it this far. Yeah, it's one of those things like, hey, just because you have an experience doesn't mean that's everybody's experience. You're not the center of the universe. Yeah, I'd say for biochem and biostats, yeah, memory is a big deal in those majors, which it makes sense, right? If you're especially if you're trying to become a doctor, part of becoming a doctor is you have to memorize and know a lot of things, and then you go into med school and you go into like your practicums and work as residents and you practice solving problems, right? That's where they do a lot of their problem solving education. They don't have to do as much of it as us engineering students do. And I think that's, they have to have such a broad and extensive knowledge background to kind of build off of for their career. And I'd say that yes, when you look at that and say, hey, yeah, maybe you can make it through your major with memory alone, but can you make it through residency? And can you make it through the MCAT? And can you make it through med school through memory alone? Through residency? Through memory alone? I don't think so. Engineering is preparing you to excel in the field, right? And you have to practice solving problems. That's how engineering works, and all good engineering courses are designed to kind of help you grow that muscle in problem solving. And most engineering exams, you're if it's a good exam written by a very thoughtful professor, then your questions on your exam will be really a question that you've never really seen before. You may have to apply some similar concept that you've applied before, but many exams that I took in engineering school, the problem was I had to solve it in a way that no practice problem that I had done before, no singular practice problem that I'd done before aligned with the solving structure of that problem that I was solving. I usually have to apply my understanding of concepts in a new way that I'd never had to apply it before. And that's the unique aspect of an engineering major. Whereas I feel like in other majors, there is a lot more like, hey, as long as you've memorized and know what the thing is, then you'll do well on your exam. Engineering school is you have to memorize and know how to solve things, but also you have to have practiced solving things and have a deep enough understanding that you can then use your understanding to solve a different type of problem. And that's the unique aspect of an engineering major. So no, you cannot make it through an engineering major on memory alone. And your friends, the world does not revolve around them. They are wrong. And yeah, you said there's not really a point to this post, and I guess there's no real point to my rant either. I guess I'm just going off of the same, the same, uh, the same diatribe that you're going off of. I'd say at the same time, also the difference between your major and their major is biochem and biostats. Usually, you really can't do much with a biochem and biostats undergrad. I guess there are very specific jobs that you can do. Engineering degree, you can come out of engineering school and go and be an engineer. With those majors, the intention is to then build towards something else, either grad school, very detailed research in one way, or go into med school, and that's reflected in the way that the majors prepare you for the next step. Is one prepares you for working, and one prepares you for more school and more education. So, okay, that's my take on this one. I'm going to take a little bit of break. I'll be right back. All right, and we're back with our career questions. And this one is a general career question. It is majoring in engineering a good investment right now? I'm about to start my senior year in high school, and I'm pretty good at math, so I thought I would go into engineering. I like mechanical, electrical, and civil engineering right now. I was wondering, though, is majoring in engineering lucrative right now? I just want to know if it's reasonable to expect a $100,000 salary in a middle-class lifestyle. Also, is it a stable field? Is it easy to get a job? Is it vulnerable to automation by AI in the next couple decades? Thank you. All right, let's address that one. Is it vulnerable to automation by AI in the next couple decades? I think it's less vulnerable than other jobs. I'd say of the jobs that are vulnerable to automation, engineering is one of the ones that's least vulnerable to automation. Is it easy to get a job? I think it's if you put in the work and you have a decent GPA and you take the time to try to work jobs and get internships, then it's fairly easy to get a job after you graduate. And then with some experience under your belt, then it's pretty easy to find another job if you ever need to make a career pivot. And can you reasonably expect a $100,000 salary in a middle class lifestyle? Definitely not like right out of college, but eventually I'd say that 5 to 10 years into your career you should be making $100,000 a year and be living a very casual middle class lifestyle. So yeah, it's a pretty reasonable expectation. Is majoring in engineering lucrative right now? I think it's, again, as lucrative as any other degree. I think that there are industries that can be more lucrative. The computer science software development industry has been very lucrative. I'd argue that it's softening a little bit. Finance is always lucrative for some, and there's also plenty of people with finance degrees that don't really have a very lucrative career. So yeah, I'd say that engineering is just as lucrative as any of the other most lucrative majors. So yeah, is engineering a good investment right now? Majoring in engineering, yes. If you can swing it, I'd say it's the most versatile and valuable degree. So yes, it's a good investment. It's a stable field. It's fairly easy to get a job when you've done your part. And it's no more vulnerable to automation by AI than any other major. All right, next question. Our next question is, hi, I need advice about a college job fair. Hello, I am not an engineer yet, but I am a freshman engineering major. I have an upcoming job fair that I'm nervous about. I am alternative and have bright pink hair. Will people at the job fair treat me differently because of that? And if so, should I get a wig or temporary hair dye to cover the pink? Side note, not having normal colored hair permanently isn't something I'm planning on doing. I've tried it before and didn't care for it, which is why I was thinking wig or dye. It'll depend. I think that they're probably it kind of depends on the person that you interact with. Some people may not look at you and take you seriously, and other people won't care. I'd say that the environment that I currently work in is one where people really, really won't care. I know people that have colored hair in their profile pictures at work, and nobody gives them crap about it. I don't look at anybody differently based on the color of their hair. That's my perspective. But if you're worried about it, there probably will be people that don't take you as seriously because of that, just because that's how the world works, and you've probably interacted with people in general. So if that's something that you care about and you don't want to use as a filter for the companies that you're willing to work for after you graduate, then yeah, go ahead and throw in a wig and dress up. But it's, again, a lot of places won't care. Some people individually may care. They might have implicit biases. So if you're worried about it, then go ahead, wear a wig, as long as your wig doesn't look bad. But I personally wouldn't care. But I mean, again, it's 2024. Most companies really shouldn't care about that, but you never know. There might be one that you want to work for that does. And so if you're really worried about it, then go ahead and throw on the wig. All right, the next one is, will I be too old to get a junior engineering role? I graduated with a bachelor's in mechanical engineering in 2021 at the age of 21. Due to the times back then, I took the first job I got out of school, which was in commodities training. That's kind of fun. Fast forward to this year, I decided I wanted to get back into engineering, and I got an admit into a funded 1 year's master's program to a top 100 university. My living costs are covered by my parents. When I graduate, I'll be 25. I'm just wondering if I screwed up by taking this master's, since I'll be old by the time I graduate, and if my age will prevent me from getting any junior or trainee roles. Any advice? I'll still have a degree by the end of it, so it's not a net loss, but ideally I would like to get into a test engineer role. I'd hate to go back into commodities after getting a master's in engineering and having to also have to answer in interviews why I got the master's, but what wasn't good enough to get an engineering role. I'm so lost. Any advice would be of great help. Yeah, so I don't think you'll be too old to get a junior engineering role. I think that you might be disappointed by the salaries that are available to you. The reality is, if you're going to get a junior engineering role, you're going to have a junior engineering pay, and then that might be a sizable step back from you. I mean, you're 25, ideally 4 years into your career, you're making, 5 to 10% uh, increases on average over that time, because of you've maybe gotten a big promotion somewhere along the way in there and you've averaged a 10%. I know that the average annual cost of living adjustment is closer to like 4 to 5%, but presuming that somebody gets a promotion, then they're averaging closer to the 7% a year. And that's a big loss in growth for earning potential. So uh, that's the one thing that I would be kind of wary of. But will you be too old to get a junior engineering role? No. People graduate with an engineering degrees at all times and ages. It really it's not, there's nothing wrong with being 25. You just may have lost some time by having gone a different direction when you first came out of school. Um, The top comment is, "Hey everyone, look at this kid. He thinks 25 is old, laughs uncontrollably. Dude, you could be 45 and I'd still be laughing at the question. Put it this way, with job hopping being the current norm, if I think you're more than 5 years from retirement, you're young enough. I'll hire you knowing you'll most likely resign within the next 5 years, no matter if you're 22 or 52, as long as you're willing to work for wages that correspond to your resume." Exactly. No experience means entry level. You shouldn't have to worry about pays. So, yeah, I guess everybody else agrees with my take. So, but if you are listening and you disagree with me, feel free to let me know at my email address. All right, next one. Oh, this is fun for me. All right, help me understand T&M contracts. Oh, I do contracts. This is fun. I get that some scopes of work, whether in design or construction, are a bit more liquid, so it makes sense that you get an initial expectation of what to be completed with a specified amount of effort. But who's stopping the contractor or consultant from BSing everything and saying, this work ended up taking us 3 weeks instead of 2 weeks? Does a typical T&M contract make it obligatory to at least meet some minimum goal? Or is it the discretion of the contractor or consultant to be honest about the time and material they use? Yeah, so I mean, some of it's an integrity thing. Another thing you can do is it's project controls, right? So if you're out on a site, you can use time sheets and time cards and badging in to track the time. And for materials, you can require your your contractors to provide batch tickets, or receiving tickets for the material that they've used, so that way they support their invoices with the time in their timesheets and badge data and the material that they used. That's kind of the project controls aspect of managing your contractor, that if you're on a T&M contract, then you really kind of have to manage your contractor. There's other controls you can put in place, like you can put a not to exceed cap. As a contractor and consultant, I hate T&M NTE. It's kind of like the worst of both worlds. All the reporting requirements of T&M, but the hard cap on the top, like a lump sum contract. So, and also you can't really bury extra contingencies into as easily, especially if you rate sheets on file with a client. For a T&M NTE versus a lump sum, I could just build, an extra 10% of just straight cash contingency. But for a T&M NTE, I can't really do that unless I do it in the hours, but then I don't get the benefit of it anyways, because if I don't use all those hours, I don't get all that revenue. So T&M contracts, the way you manage that is you have robust project controls as the client. So you have an awareness of what your contractors are spending. You have them invoicing you frequently enough and providing reporting of their hours frequently enough so you can understand how they're trending. And if they're starting to spike up really quickly on hours and it doesn't make sense with what you're doing, you can say, hey, stop! What are you doing? Why are you spending all this money? It's like, oh, well, somebody on your team told me to do this. Okay, I didn't authorize that. I think the other thing about that is that you put really strict controls in your contract. You say, hey, the way you control a T&M contract is you define your scope, very more clearly defined scope on both ends from the client and the contractor means that there's less likelihood that there's going to be out of scope work done by the contractor, so they're less likely to overrun. And also, if they're doing out of scope work and you have a contract that defines it and they weren't instructed to do that out of scope work, then as the client, then you can have an argument to them saying, hey, I didn't authorize this, it wasn't in your scope, you're going to have to eat those costs. So those are the biggest ways that you as a client can manage a T&M contract, is having a contract that has well-defined scopes and well-defined requirements as to who can authorize changes in scope, by having a robust project controls requirements of your contractors for them to report to you, and invoicing frequently enough so you understand where their costs are trending and what they're working on, and building up those costs. And then also actual physical controls of timesheet data and batch tickets and material receipt tickets to control those costs as they come in and hit your project. T&M contracts are really good if you have kind of a more long-standing relationship, especially the consultant they're not going to want to risk jeopardizing your relationship as your client. They don't want to lose your business, right? So they're even more incentivized to not behave poorly in a T&M arrangement and take advantage of that. This really makes a lot of sense whenever you don't have a very defined scope. And maybe you're just, especially T&M, not to exceed. You can say, hey, I have a bucket of cash and we're trying to work towards this thing. Don't overrun the bucket of cash. As you're approaching the maximum amount of the bucket of cash, let me know. And we'll just make some progress on this thing. T&M relationship, we have a rate schedule on file, so we know how much it's going to cost approximately. And we know generally what we're going to accomplish, but we don't have to get a very specific thing done that our scope isn't very defined. That's another really good time to use T&M, a T&M contract. So anyways, that's a big rambly answer on my end about T&M contracts, but in general, again, time and materials, T&M, reimbursable, good for undefined scopes, established relationships, robust project controls, and management. That's whenever T&M not to exceed T&M makes a lot of sense, and then you can add the not to exceed cap whenever you're worried about overrunning, especially if you're an owner that has some swag in the conversation. I'll tell you this: if I'm your contractor, I will fight very hard against any not to exceed cap if we're negotiating a rate arrangement. But that's just me. All right. Anyways, that's T&M contracts. If I missed anything, people let me know. But that is what I do. I spend a lot of time in contracts, T&M contracts being one type of them. All right. Whew, this is a terrible question. As a manager of a fully remote IT team, what were your strategies on pushing out a team member under you? Trying to get an idea of the strategies used. There's no plans to return to office RTO. Company is 70% work from home. There may be layoffs on the horizon, but none you can use. And team member is a high performer, so firing or PIP isn't an option. Why are you trying to fire this person? If you just don't like them, they're a high performer, so firing or PIP isn't an option. Sounds like you're the problem. The answer is you don't push them out. That, or if you just aren't a fit with them, then you just brag about them until somebody from another team hires them away from you. That's how I do it. But I wouldn't do that because they're a high performer. And if I'm a manager, then I know how to manage people. Comment section roasted this person. And exactly why do you want to push out a high performer? You mentioned PIP isn't an option, but it sounds like something else must be going on that they indeed warrant a PIP. Yeah, if it's a culture issue and they're like not a good person, then that's an issue. You can give them a improvement plan for their behavior in general, but If if there's no fireable offense and they are a high performer, then it sounds like you are the problem. Like you are the problem, not them. So, uh, hmm, interesting. That's a no. That's not the strat. I wouldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. The answer is you don't have the strategies. All right. Next question, and the last question. How not to sound like a total idiot when hiring a civil engineering firm? Ooh, this is good. I've reviewed plenty of RFPs and scopes and requests for proposals, and I've been a part of many of proposals, so I have a lot of feelings about this. Let's read the question. Hi, I've been calling civil engineering firms. They have questions about the project that I seem to be answering correctly, but I've been hung up on a couple times. I need an engineering firm to, ideally architectural but hard to find, review an 80-page document of construction and security specifications. It's for a commercial retail space, and based on the specs, it needs to be inspected to see if it needs to be demolished or partially demolished to build to specifications. Some things we need from the firm: architectural engineering drawings, architectural cover sheet, site and parking plan with all the measurements, details, abbreviations, and symbols, leased premises with all the room dimensions to include square foot allocations, wall, door, window, structural columns, keynotes, etc., mechanical, electrical, and plumbing, MEP engineering drawings, coordinating with contractors and overseeing that the space is built to specs, creating a timeline, and is very detailed down to the type of doorknob. Is there a general term for this type of project? How do I word it without sounding like a noob? So you want to do a retrofit of an existing space. So I think the issue is that you're trying to do too many things at once. If I were doing this, I would first do a feasibility study to review the space and inspect it and to see if it needs to be demolished or partially demolished, and kind of do a rough schedule, a rough plus or minus 30 to 50% estimate about how much it would cost to build to do the retrofit. And then I would try to go detailed to like the timeline down to the type of doorknob in like a later phase of engineering. I wouldn't try to go from 0 to 100 real quick. That's where I would kind of hang up with you is because like I'd be like, okay, this person doesn't really know how this process works. You're trying to do too many things at once. At least that's the way that I'm used to doing projects, is in multiple phases, because you wouldn't want to spend all that money in funding the architectural engineering drawings and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing drawings if you haven't first done the analysis to determine if the place needs to be demolished or partially demolished first, because that'll impact your bottom line pretty significantly, right? So you do that first, and then you do like the preliminary architectural engineering drawings, your preliminary MEP drawings, and then as you go throughout the process, you refine your estimate to be more detailed, and then you go down to the timeline, down to the doorknob. You don't want to be going straight to doorknobs the first time that you talk to these people, because I'm like, okay, this person doesn't know how this works, and they're all over the place. So I think that taking it a little bit slower and more of a stage gate process will really help you out. That's my perception of this. Is there a general term for this type of project? I think it's just like a retrofit. I don't do this. I don't do MEP. I don't do these types of projects generally, but my understanding of how engineering projects work is just kind of what's going on in my head right now. Let's read the comments and see what they say. All right. Yeah, coordinating with, oh yeah, you want them to coordinate with contractors. Again, that's pretty far along. Top comment says, you don't want a civil, you want an architect. That's why they're hanging up on you. A pure civil firm likely won't have MEP or architecture capabilities. I guess so. You need an AE firm, yes, architectural engineering firm that has all this under one roof, or you need an architect who has the relationships with the independent civil and MEP firms to prime this job for you. An AE firm is going to be more expensive, and frankly, your job might be too small for them to want to take. Sounds like a tenant upfit plan. You need an architect. The construction and security specifications is a slightly confusing term. Not really. I mean, well, actually, yeah, security specifications, maybe like, I don't know, interface with the public. But yeah, I don't use that term specifically. put together what you want, all the info you have, and email it to them and ask them for a proposal to complete the work. Yeah, that's a good thing to do, is consolidate the information that you have, give a high level timeline of what you want to accomplish. Again, what are your goals in like a staged process? What are the things you want to accomplish from 1 to 2 to 3 to help you kind of get through your timeline, and then send out the request for proposal, and then just give them a call before and said, hey, I have this RFP for this project that I want to build. Can you give me an estimate for a preliminary feasibility study for the space to see if it needs to be demolished or not? And then based on your findings, can you give me a rough high-level schedule and a rough order of magnitude estimate for the installed cost? And then you can go from there and then get more detailed results from the person. But yeah, I wouldn't go hyper detailed from the beginning. Keep it high level, what you're generally trying to accomplish over the phone. Give them a follow-up via email with this request for proposal, and then work through the process. That's how I would do it if I were in your shoes. And everybody says, why do you think a civil firm can do architectural reviews? Yeah, you probably don't want a pure civil firm doing your architectural reviews. All right. Well, anyways, that's I guess that's not my specialty, but that's I'm not a total noob, so a slight noob talking to a total noob about MEP retrofits. But anywho, this has been this episode of the Engineering Success Podcast. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you're an MEP engineer in my audience and your projects maybe run a little bit quicker and without the stage gate process that I described, feel free to let me know how your projects run, and I can update my answer on this one. But anyways, this has been the Engineering Success Podcast. I'll catch you next time, hopefully with an interview. We're scheduling a couple of them right now, and hopefully the next episode will be an interview episode. But anyways, I'll catch you later on the next episode. See ya. Bye.
I'm miscommunicating. I just made a pilot, then they threw me on the stations. Now I'm not complaining. My thoughts get complicated. I cannot explain in lameness. Never losing focus because I ain't chasing payments. Still playing in the basement while I'm working on arrangements. They heard the kid in 50 countries. Thank God that's amazing. But I'd rather thank Spotify. They put me on the station.